Hello, and welcome to my show, Searching for Integrity. My name really is John Smith, and I'm searching for people with integrity. Why? Because our country suffers from IDD, Integrity Deficit Disorder. Today, we have Mr. Stan Munslow. Is that pronounced right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, very good. Uh, and he's with a book, and I think it's going to be interesting to you, to my audience and my listeners. It's called Get Weller Sooner: 12 Powerful, Proven Ways to Speed and Improve Your Recovery from Illness or Surgery. That almost sounds too good to be true. You're going to make it happen.
Sure will.
Here.
I'll do my best. It was
Okay.
great here. I'm happy to be here.
Glad you are. Um, I wanted to first go to, if you'll mind, to go to, of course, the book, um, and the other items with respect to this. Uh, do you see more people um, buying the book because of that?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's the book has been around for about 4 years now, and it's full, structure. I also have an audio book too, but I'd say they're both pretty comparable. Yeah.
Right, right. That's good. Um, One of the things I have to disclose from my past is I did some growing up in Oklahoma, and I was looking here. The book title is Get Weller Sooner.
Right.
And Sooners are people from Oklahoma.
Oh,
When they, when
okay.
in the 1880s, they had a race. They lined up anybody that wanted land, and they just shot the shotgun, and the people that got there the best parts are Sooners. And the other thing that goes with it, I think a bourbon happens to be Weller. So now you've got something to joke about.
Yeah, absolutely. That's wonderful. I did not know that.
Yes, I went to some high school there and junior high, elementary, before I moved on to Texas.
Hmm.
Nevertheless, um, tell us about how you came to this. Was your father, was he the motive of it? And
Yeah,
so,
he was the original harbinger of the whole thing. Back in 1998, when he was 74, he was diagnosed with stage 4 lymphoma, and he was given about a 25% survival prognosis. So, I did not like that, and I always had an interest in quantum science and energy stuff and all that. So I just started doing a ton of research to try to find ways to basically augment the care he was already receiving and to improve his odds, basically, was what I was looking for. So I made him a few things. First, I made him this little tiny pocket-sized, I called it a healing guidebook, that was filled with ways, tips for him on using his mind to help beat this disease in conjunction with the chemo he was getting and all that. He
right,
read it all the time. And then I made him a cassette with some healing affirmations and a guided visualization, and I set up a prayer group. So in the end, yes, my dad did beat his cancer, but you know what? It was the way he beat it. He beat it fast, he beat it easily, and he beat it completely. He didn't lose his hair, he didn't lose weight, he didn't get nauseous. He just remained fit and active. And I got to say, more vital than he had been before at 74 years old. He greatly exceeded his oncologist's expectations. So I was so bolstered by that I just started offering these materials to anybody I knew who was facing some kind of medical challenge. And from there, the successes just really started to rack up. Now, the book itself happened because starting in 2014, my wife's sister, Chris, who I adore, was diagnosed with stage 4 plus ovarian cancer. And this was so bad that her oncologist could only give her 3 to 6 months, and that was with chemo. And I'm
Right.
like, oh no, 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 no. I want more time with her. I'd only known her for a few years. So I just started doing a ton more research and really fleshing out what I had done before with my dad and just developing it, making it as strong as I could. So I literally wrote the book for her. I even gave her a printed copy before it even really existed. And and she read it and all that. So what happened was the 6 months came and went. And then it was a year, and then it was 2 years, and then it was 4 years, and then ultimately it was 8 years beyond anybody's, predictions. And we did lose her last summer to C. diff, but I have to say, in those 8 years, she really did live a good life, and she got to see her first three grandchildren be born. So that was like the real blessing. And the end of that story is that I found out after she passed that her family had put a copy of my book in her casket. And I said, why did you do that? And they said, well, because she always told everybody that my oncologist and my brother-in-law saved my life. And so the book has really, it's done some things even in what I'll call like, big situations.
Right.
Okay, so that's how it got started.
Yeah, that's really something. Um, it says here, and that's what you were just describing, helping people for years to heal better and heal faster through such techniques as mind body medicine, prayer, visualization, affirmation, and even music. That's and people get better because of that. That's just amazing.
Yeah, all of the 12, I call them strategies, all the 12 strategies that are presented in the book are not me talking so much as me just reporting on cutting edge research, whether it's through doctors, researchers, or even quantum physicists. But they all have a pretty amazing track record, even on their own. Although I'm very careful at the beginning of the book, it's like, okay, fine, maybe some people have had outstanding success using one or more of those techniques on their own. But I tell the readers, you ought to do no such thing. You get all of the standard professional care you can get, and that this book will only represent, an adjunct to that care. It just, that's the only way I can present it, because I'm not a doctor. I'm just reporting on what top docs have said about things such as music. I mean, music itself improves medical outcomes across the board. And it's, you know what? It's always been that way. In fact, the Chinese character for medicine is actually made from two characters, one of which is the character for music. And that goes back millennia. Hippocrates treated patients with music, Native Americans did, and now scientists have jumped on board in past decades, basically proving them right. But you got to do it right. It's not just any music that really does the job. It seems to be so far that classical music and new age music seem to offer the best results because they're soothing, they're calming. And actually, I'm a musician, so I know this anyway, but they're very cerebral. They really get in there and really get things, worked up in the brain. But I should point out that patients, even who are under anesthesia, having surgery, if there's music playing, even in the operating room, they will require less pain medicine during, let's say, post-op than they otherwise would. And everybody's like, well, how could that be? I mean, you can't hear when you're asleep. And I'm here to tell you, you absolutely can hear when you're asleep. If I'm asleep and my wife said, stay and wake up, I hear her, I wake up. And these people are chemically made to stay asleep. But the bottom line is that their auditory receptors are still on. But you know what? Even beyond that, one of the things the book talks a lot about is how everything, including us, is made of energy. That's all anything is. Einstein proved that. And so music is vibrational energy, and so are we. And so the vibrations, don't necessarily have to go into our ears. They just merge with us. That's quantum science is what it is, and it's been several decades now that scientists have known that everything is just energy, including us. The real mind-boggling thing, though, that quantum physicists found is that they say, okay, if everything's made of energy, what exactly is energy? Like, what is it made out of? And this just stood the world on its head. Energy is made of awareness, of
Right.
intelligence, of consciousness. That's what everything is, including our bodies. So when I say things in the book like, that people can think themselves healthy. I mean that very literally. I mean, it's like the placebo effect. I could give somebody a sugar pill and convince them it's a powerful pain medicine, and they generally get the same result. But the thing is,
Right.
it's not from the pill, right? That was a Tic Tac. Right? It's from their thoughts and their expectations. Expectations drive every single chapter in the book to some degree or other. And but the fact that, like I say, we're made of thought anyway, I would just recommend to people, then you need to, especially if you're sick or recovering from surgery, you need to do what the greats in all fields always do. They don't look at the world the way it is, so to speak. They look at things the way they want them to be. And that's just pure, law of attraction. It's been known for millennia. And I would tell people you need to see your body not as it is, but as you
Right.
want it to be. I'm strong, I'm healthy, I'm healed, I'm vital, I'm recovered. And there are so many, gazillions of examples of that happening.
Do people contact you, for instance, in a hospital or that type
Um,
of thing?
well, put it this way, it hasn't happened among people who I don't know. But like,
Okay.
when I say I built up a track record over the years before my sister-in-law's situation, that
Right.
was basically friends and family who had either large or small crises. And sometimes they would say, it's like, so you got anything in your book that, would be of help? And I'll say, well, yeah, I mean, read the whole book, and take whatever you can get. I mean, if somebody said, well, could you give me what would be the one like most important or helpful strategy from the book that you could give? I'd probably say get yourself a prayer group, because there are over 1,200 published studies in reputable medical journals attesting to and outright proving the power of prayer to, improve healing. Now I'm talking about prayer where a patient is being prayed for by friends, loved ones, or in some cases even
Right.
strangers. When they do the studies, neither the patients nor the doctors knew that they were being prayed for, by strangers, and it still would yield those results. And from my own experience with, like I say, friends and family, I would say if I had to give the most credit somewhere, that's where it would be. Is that because whether you look at prayer as a religious energy or just simple spirituality, or even just quantum science, it really comes down to the same thing. You're sending your positive energies in the form of thought into the person's body, and so I always put together prayer groups. In fact, what I've done with a few loved ones, including my sister-in-law, is I built, like my brother-in-law right now has esophageal cancer. So I built him a Facebook page called Healing Energy for Dwayne, where we would get more people on board. And he had upwards of 99 people praying for him at any one moment. Because I tell them, set two alarms on your phone, one at 7 a.m. and one at 9 p.m., and we're going to pray together. And if you can't do it at that time, fine, do it whenever. But let's try to coalesce as much of our thought energy,
Right.
into his being as possible. And the fact that Dwayne knows that we have this page and he knows that all these people has his back, he kind of gets a bonus from that. Is that he says, "Wow, all these people are fighting for me, so I'm going to fight." And it made him stronger and more positive just to know that he was being prayed for, let alone from the prayer itself. So anyway, but I would definitely recommend to anybody, who's facing, whether it's them or a loved one facing a medical crisis. So it's like, please get yourself a prayer group. The internet is filled with good healing prayers. I give 4 or 5 of them in the book that I sort of culled from the best of the best and then tweaked them and, improved upon them as best I can. But get yourself some good healing prayers, whether they're religious or Christian or just spiritual or whatever. Do whatever makes you happy. But that would be my number one. Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic, and it's amazing. I recall uh, an assistant in a hospital,
Mhm.
children's hospital, and I helped out there. And I had a significant my some 12 or 13 year old was getting ready to go home, and I people weren't there, and I started moving some energy around the area. And the next day, the bed was empty, and I asked them, "Where are they?" They said, "Well, she was discharged already." Now, I'm not going to take credit for that, but I did, work it for about 20 minutes.
Sure.
Uh, and it's energy. It's energy. Any way
Any
you get it, affirmation, visualization, prayer, and prayer for sure is the largest capacity for
Yeah.
that type of thing.
And even in regards to research, like I said, 1,200 studies, it's nothing to nothing to sneeze at. And, especially because they are so scientifically generated. Like, it used to be that doctors would kind of poo-poo the prayer thing because that wasn't part of science and all that.
Hmm.
But now it is,
Hmm.
and they've
Now it
put
is.
a journal to do. So now even doctors, some of the more enlightened ones maybe, but they're even prescribing. Whenever some of my friends or family told their doctors, "Hey, look, I got 99 people praying for me," they're not scoffing anymore. They're like, "Go for it. Do whatever you can do." Then, that my sister-in-law's oncologist is a top oncologist in Rhode Island at Women and Infants, and and he did what he could do. He said, "Look, Chris, I got you 6 months. That's what the chemo was supposed to do. So whatever it is you did to get yourself to 8 years," he goes, "I'm
Right.
all for it. You do whatever you want to do." And so we weren't at odds with each other. One thing just supplements the other.
Right. Now I was reading something here.
Mhm.
Um, to date, you have written over 260 books for Amazon. Now
Yes, and
that's
yeah.
how many pens did you wear out?
Well, what that mostly is, I should say, is that most of those titles are short stories, short fiction stories that I write under pen names, and I basically put out a book a week. So that's how I'm able to do that. Now, as far as my nonfiction, I have maybe close to a dozen, I would say, titles that either pertain to this topic that we're talking about, or it
Right.
could be public speaking, different nonfiction topics. But most of those books, yeah, are short stories.
What items do people come to you for? I mean, is it God? Is it fate? Um, are they desperate in times?
I think
Do
I
they
think
reach?
sometimes they are. Yeah, sometimes it's desperate, but they're just looking for. Uh, if I had to put it into one sort of cohesive thing, I would say what they're mainly looking for is as much stuff as they can get. In addition, like I say, to whatever, standard professional care they're getting. It's like, look, I got my chemo or I got my treatments that I'm getting, whatever they might consist of. But if I can add in some prayer, if I can add in, listening to music or watching comedy. Norman Cousins wrote a book called Anatomy of an Illness, where he had a mesothelioma, and he just, at that time, comedy wasn't that easy to obtain like it is now. He was kind of stuck just watching Candid Camera reruns and Marx Brothers movies. And now, oh my God, people can go to the internet and laugh themselves silly for the rest of their life. There's enough humor out there. But just that one thing alone, he gives credit to getting him out of a bad situation. So that's what really got the ball rolling with humor. But that's the thing. Like I said, they all have their success stories. All of these different
Right.
techniques.
The the amazing power of the mind body connection.
Mhm.
It's like, what shelf in the grocery store can you find that and take it home with you?
The mind-body connection, from my point of view, stems mostly from what I mentioned a moment ago about because everything is made of thought. And it well, here's a good example. Dr. Deepak Chopra, in one of his books called Quantum Healing, talks about how if a patient that has multiple personality disorder, right, if more than one person living in their head, if they have, let's say, an allergy to orange juice and they break out in hives when they drink it, the next day they wake up with another personality, they can drink all the orange juice they want because that person doesn't know that they have an allergy. So therefore, their body's like, okay, no allergy. Even people with non-insulin
Right.
dependent diabetes, they have to take a drug to maintain their blood sugar levels, but then they wake up in another personality. They don't need to take that drug because now their pancreas is functioning normally. And when I read stuff like that, I'm like, oh my God, you know what? I've kind of lived that my whole life. I didn't see a doctor from age 17 to 42. I only started going because my family basically made me, but I don't get sick as in ever. I had one 36-hour bout of flu in 2005, and that's it. No hospitalizations, no treatments, no other illnesses. And people are like, wow, you've been lucky. And I'm thinking, like, lucky for 64 years straight? Are you serious? And then they'll say, well, you've got good genes. And I'm like, no, actually, I don't. Both my parents and my four siblings have had more than their share of medical issues. I know what it is that, first of all, I never ever expect to get sick. I just don't let my mind go there ever. People are like, oh, to catch up to you. I don't go there. I'm sorry. And the other thing is I always see my body as perfect. And the reason I do that is from studying the most successful people and how they don't look at things the way they are. They just see it the way they want to be. I want a perfect body, so that's all I see. Aside from my really crummy eyesight that I was born with, I just don't see my body as having any other problems. And well, I mean, I'm 64 years old, and there just haven't ever been any problems. Um, my only hospitalizations were being a kid getting hit by a car, a couple of times,
Yeah.
things like that. But as far as illnesses and stuff, no. So I mean, yeah, the mind-body connection to me is on a personal level is huge because, like I say, our thinking creates our reality. And you know what? If people don't think that way, they're like, "Oh, I don't do any of that mind body stuff." So what thought is affecting my body now? And I would say the collective unconscious. The whole universe is made out of thought. The great British physicist Sir James Jeans said, "You got to stop looking at the universe as a great machine and see it for what it really is." According to quantum scientists, which is that it's a great thought. The collective, whether people want to call that spirit or God or the collective unconscious or whatever other term they choose to use, if I don't directly control my body with my thoughts, well, the universe will, for good or bad, but I have much more direct and positive control over the goings on inside me. I mean, great people even use affirmations and such to affect things outside their body, like whether it's generating wealth or success. And I'm thinking, well, if you can do that, with those outer things, imagine what you could do with the goings on inside your own body over which you have amazing control. And
Right.
does that mean it's perfect? No, absolutely not. But there sure is a pretty reputable body of evidence saying that there is something to it. And even if I don't get the miracle that I'm necessarily predicting or whatever, in the end, what I'm really looking for is an improved outcome,
Right.
and I'm not going to get that improved outcome um, by being negative. you
Right.
know, People always ask me about my sister-in-law being the quote perfect patient. When she would go to chemo with my wife would always take her. And those two women loved to dress. They would always be dressed up in their nice clothes, not fancy, but just nice, their hair, their makeup. And they'd show up at this infusion lab and they were just nice and friendly and appreciative and positive to everybody there, the janitor, the parking attendant. But you look around the room and you don't see that. You would see
Right.
people like in their pajamas and in sweatsuits looking dour and dark and dismal and sometimes outright hostile. And people would say, well, you know what? These people have cancer. They have every right to be that way. They do. They absolutely have every right. But that doesn't mean it's in their best interest. I mean, I have a right to walk along a cliff in a blizzard. Doesn't mean I'm going to do it. It's not in my best interest to feed my body with negative talk, negative thoughts, or negative behavior. And so Chris just did not do that. One day she was in her little room getting her chemo with my wife. They were sipping tea as they always did. And this young nurse comes in with a little basket. And she said, Chris, look, I want to show you these beautiful socks that some of the volunteers made, little booty socks you can wear here when you're here or at home. And Chris goes, oh, those are adorable. She goes, I'm a pretty good knitter. I'd love to make some socks for the patients. And the nurse is like, Chris, you are the patient. And she's Chris is like, I'm not sick. I just come here to get medicine that I need, but I'm not sick and I can knit and I will knit some socks. And she did. It was just the
Right.
coolest thing to see, how she used her mind. She just never went to the cancer side of things. It's not that she wasn't aware of it. She just didn't invest any mental energy there at all.
Well, I'm going to bring out my stamp of approval for what you've got going here.
Thank you.
And it's get well sooner, regardless of what we think about Oklahoma.
Absolutely.
And uh, where can people find your book?
I sell all of my books on Amazon just because they are the largest bookseller right now, and they have various reasons why it's good for me to keep it exclusively to them. It's for my own betterment, I guess you could say. But it's available on Amazon both as an ebook, a paperback, or an audio book. And the audio book is important because, when people are sick or recovering from illness, some of them are just not going to have the wherewithal to read a book. So I say, well, then, what, either get the audio or you could have maybe a friend or a loved one read the book to you, one way or another. Actually, nowadays with the Amazon Alexa, they can even just tell their Alexa, hey, read Get Well Sooner from my Kindle library. And it works really well, actually. So there's a lot of ways they can do that. But I definitely wanted to have an audio book too.
Well, Stan, I'm glad that you came on the show here today. I know
Mm.
a lot of people heard about it, and it's important that this spread. Other people can take it and help others, uh, just like you want. Me too. Um,
Absolutely. It really does make a difference, large or small. Yeah.
I need to thank my listeners for tuning in. Um, it Searching for integrity. You've you've certainly done that part, and my adios is so long and happy trails to all.